Lucas Martinez's fingers were so numb he almost didn't feel the tiny hand grabbing his ankle. 3-year-old Maya Chen had been locked in a shopping cart behind Giordano's restaurant for 43 minutes in -8-degree weather, her lips blue, her small body shutting down. Lucas had one choice and 180 seconds to make it. Give away his father's police jacket, the only thing keeping him alive through a Chicago winter, or let a child die 3 feet from where he slept. What happened next would expose a $4.2 million conspiracy and prove that sometimes the most powerless person in the city has all the power that matters. Subscribe and let us know what city you're watching from in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. The sound that woke Lucas Martinez at 11:47 p.m. on December 23rd wasn't the wind screaming through broken warehouse windows. It was something smaller, weaker, human. A whimper. Lucas sat up fast, his father's police academy jacket wrapped tight around a frame that had dropped from 140 pounds to 108 over 19 months of street survival. The jacket was Chicago PD regulation issue, navy blue with Detective Robert Martinez stitched above the pocket. It was all Lucas had left of his father. That and the survival skills that kept him breathing when most homeless kids his age didn't make it through their first winter. The whimper came again. Lucas moved toward the loading dock door, staying low, staying quiet. 14 years old, and he'd learned fast that invisible was the only thing keeping you alive on Chicago's South Side. He pushed through the door into the alley behind Giordano's restaurant, where he sometimes salvaged food before the rats got there first. What he found made his heart stop. A shopping cart wedged between 2 dumpsters. Inside, a child sat motionless, wrapped in a thin blanket that might as well have been tissue paper in -8-degree weather. Her skin had gone past pale into gray. Her eyes were open, but seeing nothing. Her lips were blue. "Oh God," Lucas whispered. He reached her in 3 steps, his hands already moving to check her pulse the way his father had drilled into him during the survival training that had started when Lucas was 8. Weak. Too weak, irregular. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. Severe hypothermia. Minutes, not hours. "Hey, sweetheart," Lucas said, keeping his voice soft even though panic was clawing up his throat. "Can you hear me? Can you look at me?" The child's lips moved, but no sound came out. Her eyes didn't track his face. She was shutting down. Lucas pulled out his salvaged phone. 11:49 p.m. No service, but the time worked. He looked around the empty alley. Whoever had left her here was gone. He looked at the little girl dying in front of him, looked at his jacket, did the math that would determine whether one of them lived or both of them died. The jacket was rated for 20 degrees. Outside was -8, with wind chill pushing it to -25. Firehouse 51 was 6 blocks north on Halstead Street. If he ran full speed, if he didn't stop, he had maybe 90 minutes before his core temperature dropped low enough to kill him. The child had minutes, maybe 10, maybe less. Lucas Martinez pulled off his father's jacket. The cold hit him like a physical assault, punching through the 3 layers of salvaged clothing underneath, a torn Blackhawks hoodie, a shirt from the Salvation Army donation bin, a thermal undershirt he'd found behind a Goodwill. His body immediately started shaking, violent tremors he couldn't control. He wrapped the jacket around the little girl, tucking the sleeves around her tiny body. It swallowed her completely, 4 sizes too big. But it was warm. It was keeping her alive. "Okay," Lucas said through chattering teeth. "Okay, I've got you. We're getting you somewhere warm." He lifted her out of the cart. She weighed maybe 30 pounds. Her head lolled against his shoulder, and he felt how cold her skin was, even through his hoodie. That was bad. That meant her body was losing the fight. Lucas started running. His father's voice played in his head, the lecture Detective Robert Martinez had given him 100 times. In an emergency, you assess the situation, you make a decision, and you act. You don't hesitate. You don't second guess. Hesitation kills people, Lucas. Remember that. Lucas ran. The first block burned through pure adrenaline. His body was moving on autopilot, his mind focused on the small weight in his arms and the knowledge that every second counted. The second block, his lungs started screaming. The frigid air felt like broken glass with every breath. His face went numb. His ears burned. "Stay with me," Lucas whispered to the girl. "Please stay with me. Just a few more minutes." The third block, his hands started going numb. The child felt heavier, or maybe his arms were giving out. He couldn't tell anymore. His legs were moving, but he couldn't feel his feet hitting the pavement. The fourth block, he stumbled, caught himself against a brick wall, kept moving. The shivering had gotten so violent he could barely maintain his grip on the girl. His vision was starting to narrow, tunnel vision creeping in from the edges. "Almost there," he gasped. "Almost there." The fifth block felt like running through molasses. Every step took effort his body didn't have. His father's training kicked in again, the warnings about hypothermia stages. When you stop shivering, that's stage 3. That's when you're dying, son. Lucas was still shivering. That was good. That meant he still had time. The sixth block appeared in front of him, and Lucas saw the lights of Firehouse 51 like a beacon. 300 yards. 200. 100. He hit the door at 12:04 a.m., 17 minutes since he'd found her in the alley. 17 minutes running through Chicago winter, carrying a dying child. Lucas raised one numb fist and pounded on the door. "Help!" His voice came out weaker than he intended. "Please, she's freezing." The door swung open. A woman stood there, early 30s, tall and athletic, wearing CFD turnout pants and a navy blue t-shirt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Her eyes went from Lucas to the child in his arms, and her entire expression transformed. "Jesus Christ," she breathed. "Rodriguez, get the medical kit, now!" Lucas tried to hand the child over, but his arms wouldn't cooperate. His muscles had locked up from the cold and the trembling. "Son," the woman said, her voice gentler now, controlled. "I need you to let go. We've got her. She's safe now." Lucas forced his fingers to uncurl. The woman took the child, cradling her carefully, and moved inside while shouting orders. "Tommy, get me thermal blankets. Maria, start warming protocol. Call Lurie Children's Hospital. Tell them we have a pediatric hypothermia case incoming. Female, approximately 3 years old. Estimated exposure time, 45 minutes. Possible frostbite." Lucas stood in the doorway, swaying on his feet. The girl was safe. He'd made it. He could rest now. His legs gave out. Strong hands caught him before he could hit the concrete. An older man's voice, calm and steady. "I got him, Lieutenant Chen. This one's hypothermic too." "Get him inside. Rodriguez, I need 2 warming stations set up. Move!" Lucas felt himself being lifted, carried. The warm air inside the firehouse hit his frozen skin, and the pain was extraordinary. His nerve endings, numb from extreme cold, suddenly woke up all at once. "Easy, son. Easy now." The man carrying him had gray hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "You're safe. You did good. What's your name?" "Lucas," he managed through teeth that wouldn't stop chattering. "Is she... the little girl... Is she going to? The lieutenant's got her. You saved her life, son. Now we need to make sure you're okay, too. They laid him on a gurney and wrapped him in thermal blankets that felt like fire against his frozen skin. A paramedic appeared, started checking his vital signs with practiced efficiency. Lucas could hear Lieutenant Chen working on the little girl 20 feet away, her voice calm but urgent. Core temperature 93.4 degrees, cardiac rhythm stable but weak, fingers and toes showing signs of frostbite. Get me warm to IV fluids. Where's that ambulance? 3 minutes out, Lieutenant, someone called. Respiratory rate shallow but improving. Come on, sweetheart, come back to us. Lucas tried to sit up. I need to go. I can't stay here. They'll ask questions and I can't. The gray-haired man put a gentle but firm hand on his shoulder. You're not going anywhere until we make sure you're going to be okay. I'm Captain Mike Torres. Where are your parents, son? Lucas closed his eyes. Dead. Car accident 18 months ago. I'm sorry. Who are you staying with? Foster family? Group home? Nobody. I'm staying with nobody. The silence that followed was heavy. Lieutenant Chen appeared beside his gurney. Up close, Lucas could see she had the same dark eyes as the little girl, the same delicate bone structure in her face. That child you brought in, she said quietly, her voice tight with emotion. Do you know who she is? Lucas shook his head. Her name is Maya Chen. The lieutenant's voice cracked slightly. She's my niece. My sister's daughter. My sister, she's been struggling with addiction for 2 years. I've been fighting to get custody for 6 months, but the system keeps blocking me, saying she needs to be with her mother, even though... She stopped, took a breath. You saved my niece's life. Is she going to be okay? Yes, because you got her here in time. Lieutenant Chen knelt beside the gurney. That jacket you gave her, it says Martinez, Robert Martinez, Chicago PD. Lucas nodded, unable to speak. I knew Detective Robert Martinez, Chen said slowly. Good man. We worked together on a gang task force about 3 years ago. Your father was Organized Crime Division, right? Worked the Thornton investigation? Lucas's head snapped up. You know about that? I know your father was building a case against some kind of financial fraud operation. He was careful about details, didn't share much. But I remember the name. Thornton. Chen studied Lucas's face. What happened to you after your father died? Foster care for 8 weeks. Then Lakeside Youth Services group home. Lasted 11 months before they kicked me out. Lucas's voice went flat. Director said I had behavioral issues. Said I was violent and disruptive. I've been on the street ever since. 19 months total. Chen's jaw tightened. Lakeside. That's Derek Thornton's operation. You know him? I know he's got a spotless reputation on paper. Too spotless. The kind of clean that makes you wonder what's being hidden. She paused. What kind of behavioral issues? Lucas met her eyes. I saw things that didn't add up. Asked questions about where the food budget was going when kids were going hungry. About why the census kept changing but we never saw new kids arrive. About why some kids just disappeared overnight without explanation. Thornton didn't like questions. Called me defiant. Said I was corrupting the other residents with conspiracy theories. What do you mean, things that didn't add up? Lucas hesitated, then reached into his jeans pocket with shaking hands, pulled out a battered smartphone with a cracked screen. This still works. No service, but the camera and storage work fine. He held it up. 47 photos. Financial records I found in the trash. Emails Thornton printed and threw away. Internal memos about ghost residents and billing optimization. 3 videos I recorded of staff meetings where Thornton talked about warehousing system garbage and maximizing revenue per unit. Lucas's voice got harder. That's what he calls us. Units. Not kids. Units. Chen took the phone carefully, started scrolling through the photos. Her expression darkened with each swipe. Lucas, do you understand what you have here? Proof that Derek Thornton is stealing millions from the state by billing for kids who aren't there anymore. Proof that he's starving the kids who are there to pocket the food budget. Proof that he's running a fraud scheme across 11 facilities. Lucas's hands clenched under the thermal blankets. But proof doesn't matter when nobody believes you. Who's going to take the word of a homeless kid over a man like Derek Thornton? He sits on charity boards. He gives speeches about helping troubled youth. He's untouchable. Chen looked at him for a long moment. Then she pulled out her own phone and made a call. Dad, she said, I need you at Firehouse 51 right now. Bring everyone, every brother within riding distance. She listened for a moment. Because I just watched a 14-year-old boy nearly die saving Maya's life. He gave her his only coat in -8-degree weather and carried her 6 blocks. And now he's showing me evidence that Derek Thornton is running a multi-million-dollar fraud operation through Lakeside Youth Services. She paused. Dad, this kid has been documenting everything for months. He has photos, videos, financial records, all of it. But he's right that nobody will believe him alone. We need to make them believe. Another pause. Yes, I'm serious. This is real. How fast can you get here? Chen hung up and looked at Lucas. My father is Robert Reaper Johnson. He's president of the Hells Angels Chicago chapter. You know what that means? Lucas shook his head. It means in about 30 minutes you're going to have 180 of the toughest men in Illinois ready to back you up. Not because of what's on that phone, though that matters, but because you gave everything you had to save a child you didn't even know. That kind of courage means something in my father's world. It means everything. I don't understand. Why would they help me? Chen's expression softened with old pain. Because 12 years ago, my father lost his son, my brother Tommy. He was 15 years old, in foster care after our mother died. He was placed in a facility not unlike Lakeside. He died there from untreated pneumonia. Preventable. Completely preventable. The staff just didn't care enough to get him medical attention until it was too late. She touched Lucas's shoulder gently. My father has been waiting for a way to burn that corrupt system down ever since. You just handed him the torch. The sound started 22 minutes later, low and distant at first, then building. The rumble of motorcycle engines, dozens of them, approaching in formation that spoke of military discipline. Lucas sat up straighter on the gurney, his core temperature back up to 96 degrees, still hypothermic, but stable. Maya had been transported to Lurie Children's Hospital, her prognosis good thanks to fast intervention. Through the firehouse bay windows, Lucas watched them arrive. Motorcycles rolled in with precision choreography, row after row, chrome gleaming under streetlights. 180 bikes parked in perfect formation. One man dismounted first, tall, maybe 6'2", with a gray beard and pale blue eyes that had seen combat and survived. He wore a black leather vest covered in patches that told a story of 46 years in the club. Hells Angels Chicago. President. Vietnam veteran. Reaper Johnson walked into the firehouse like he owned every inch of ground he crossed. His gaze swept the room and landed on Lucas with the intensity of a targeting laser. He crossed the space in 5 long strides. "You're Robert Martinez's boy," Reaper said. Not a question, a statement of fact. "Yes, sir." Reaper's eyes moved to the police academy jacket folded beside Lucas's gurney. He picked it up with surprising gentleness, ran his thumb over the name stitched above the pocket. Your father was investigating Derek Thornton when he died. Lucas's breath caught. How did you know that? Because I was the one feeding him information. Reaper's voice went cold. I had a brother in the club whose daughter was placed in one of Thornton's facilities back in 2010. That girl told her father things. Bad things. Things that didn't make sense. Her father told me. I started asking around, making connections. Then I brought it to your dad, because he was the kind of cop who actually gave a damn about doing the right thing. Reaper's jaw tightened. Robert started building a case, started pulling financial records, interviewing former residents, documenting everything. He was close to having enough for an indictment. Then, 2 weeks later, his car went off Lakeshore Drive at 2 a.m. Brake line failure, the department said. Tragic accident. Reaper's eyes burned. I never believed it for 1 second. Lucas felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. Neither did I. I found his investigation notes after he died, hidden in our basement in a lockbox I wasn't supposed to know about. He had documentation about Thornton, about the money, about everything. He knew what was happening. And then you ended up in Thornton's system. Yeah, like someone planned it. Reaper set the jacket down carefully, knelt beside the gurney so he was eye level with Lucas. Son, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need complete honesty. Are you absolutely certain about what's on that phone? Certain enough to testify in court? Certain enough to put your name on a case that's going to bring down a powerful man? Certain enough to go to war? Lucas thought about his father, about 19 months sleeping in a frozen warehouse, about Maya Chen nearly dying in a shopping cart, about all the kids whose names had disappeared from Lakeside's records while Derek Thornton got richer. I'm certain. Reaper nodded slowly, stood, turned to face the 180 bikers who'd filled the firehouse, waiting in disciplined silence. Brothers, Reaper said, his voice carrying like a commander addressing troops. This is Lucas Martinez. He's the son of Detective Robert Martinez, and some of you knew Robert. Good man, honest cop. Died 18 months ago in what was called an accident, but what we know was murder. The bikers stayed absolutely silent. Lucas has been homeless for 19 months. Tonight he gave his only coat to a freezing child and nearly died getting her to safety. That child is my granddaughter, Maya. Lucas saved her life without knowing who she was or that we'd ever find out. Reaper paused, letting that sink in. Lucas also has evidence that Derek Thornton has been running a fraud operation through Lakeside Youth Services. Evidence that connects to Robert Martinez's death. Evidence that can bring down an organization that's been hurting kids and stealing millions for years. He looked at each face in the crowd. We're going to help him, but we're going to do this smart. No violence, no threats, no intimidation. We're going to gather evidence like professionals. We're going to document everything. We're going to build a case so bulletproof that even Thornton's lawyers can't punch holes in it. And we're going to do it in 48 hours, before Thornton knows we're coming. Reaper turned back to Lucas. You're not homeless anymore, son. As of right now, you're under the protection of this club. You're family. And family doesn't sleep in warehouses in winter, while predators like Thornton get rich hurting children. Understood? Lucas couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. He just nodded. Good. Reaper's voice went hard as steel. Now let's go to war. The firehouse conference room had never held this many people. 180 bikers packed every available space, standing shoulder to shoulder, arms crossed, waiting. Lucas sat at the head table between Reaper and Lieutenant Chen, his father's jacket back around his shoulders, still trembling but not from cold anymore. Reaper spread a map of Chicago across the table. Red circles marked 11 locations. Lakeside Youth Services facilities scattered across the city like a cancer. "Here's how this works," Reaper said, his voice cutting through the silence. "We have 48 hours before Thornton knows we're coming. After that, evidence disappears, witnesses get intimidated, lawyers start filing motions. We need everything documented, verified, and in the hands of federal prosecutors before Monday morning." He pointed at a man in his 50s with gray in his beard. "Professor Davis, you're former federal prosecutor, right?" 23 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office," the man said. "Retired 2 years ago." "Your legal strategy. I need you to tell us exactly what evidence holds up in court and what doesn't. Chain of custody, witness testimony protocols, everything by the book." Professor nodded. "I'll need to see everything Lucas has first. Every photo, every video, every document." Reaper turned to a lean man with surgical scars on his hands. "Doc Martinez, you're ER physician at Northwestern Memorial? 15 years trauma medicine. You document medical evidence. Every kid who went through Thornton's system, I want comprehensive exams. Malnutrition, untreated injuries, dental neglect, everything. Make it so detailed a blind jury could convict." "Understood." Ghost Williams. Reaper looked at a quiet man in wire-rimmed glasses. "You're forensic accountant. Worked FBI financial crimes?" 12 years before I retired. Thornton's running a ghost resident scheme. Kids discharged, but still on the books for billing. I need you to prove it mathematically. Show the money trail." Ghost nodded, already pulling out a laptop. "Hammer Thompson." Reaper gestured to a massive man with tattoos covering both arms. "Former FBI field agent?" 20 years, Organized Crime Division. You coordinate witness interviews, former residents, staff members who quit, neighbors who saw things. I want signed statements, recorded testimony, everything admissible." Hammer cracked his knuckles. "I'll need Lucas to help identify who to talk to. He knows these kids." Lucas spoke up, his voice stronger now. "I kept track of everyone who got kicked out. I have names, last known locations for 34 former residents. Some of them are still on the street. I see them sometimes." "Can you find them?" Hammer asked. "Yes." Reaper turned to Chen. "Sarah, you're our liaison with Chicago PD and Fire. We need official channels involved from the start. This can't look like vigilante justice." "I've got contacts in internal affairs and the state's attorney's office," Chen said. "Good people who've been waiting for something solid on Thornton. I'll make calls." "Do it." Reaper looked around the room. "The rest of you, your support. Transportation, documentation backup, witness protection if needed. We move in teams of 4 minimum. Nobody goes anywhere alone. Thornton has connections, and we don't know how deep they go." He picked up Lucas's phone. "Professor, I need you to look at this first. Tell me what we've got." Professor Davis took the phone, started scrolling through the photos. His expression darkened with each swipe. After 5 minutes, he looked up. "This is admissible, all of it. Financial records, email correspondence, internal memos, all of it can be entered as evidence if we maintain proper chain of custody." He paused. "But, Lucas, these videos you took, the staff meetings, where were you when you recorded these?" "In the ventilation system," Lucas said quietly. "There's a duct that runs above Thornton's office. I figured out how to access it from the maintenance room. Nobody knew I was there." "That's borderline wiretapping," Professor said. "But given that you were a minor resident in the facility and the recordings document criminal activity and child endangerment, we can argue it was self-preservation. Any decent prosecutor will make that stick." He scrolled to one video, pressed play. Thornton's voice filled the room, warm and professional. 27 months, Roger. 27 months, and we're sitting on $2.5 million in ghost resident billing. The state auditors don't cross-reference discharge dates with payment records. They never have. As long as we keep the numbers within reasonable attrition rates, we're golden. Another voice responded. What about the Martinez kid? He's been asking questions. Lucas? Thornton laughed. He's nobody. System garbage with a dead cop father and delusions of being some kind of detective. I'll label him violent and disruptive, kick him out next week. Problem solved. Nobody believes homeless kids. The room went absolutely silent. Reaper's jaw clenched so hard Lucas could hear his teeth grinding. When was this recorded? 2 weeks before he expelled me, Lucas said. I knew it was coming. I just didn't know where I'd go after. He called you garbage, Chen said softly, her hand finding Lucas's shoulder. You were a child in his care, and he called you garbage. He calls all of us that, Lucas said. In the videos, he and the other directors talk about warehousing units, managing problem inventory, optimizing revenue streams per capita. We're not kids to him. We're commodities. Ghost Williams had his laptop open, external hard drive connected to Lucas's phone. I'm making encrypted backups of everything. Multiple copies, different secure locations. If something happens to the original, we've got redundancy. How long? Reaper asked. 2 hours for full forensic documentation. Do it. Reaper turned to Hammer. Start with the kids Lucas knows, former residents who can testify about conditions at Lakeside. We need their stories on record. Hammer looked at Lucas. Can you make a list? Names, descriptions, where you last saw them? Lucas grabbed a piece of paper and started writing. His handwriting was cramped but legible, names flowing from memory. Sarah Martinez, 14. Last seen outside the Green Line station on Ashland. Marcus Webb, 8, sleeping in the library vestibule on Roosevelt. Destiny Johnson, 15, panhandling near Navy Pier. The list grew to 34 names. I'll find them, Hammer said, taking the paper. Teams of 4. We bring them somewhere warm, feed them, treat them with respect. Then we ask if they're willing to talk. Some of them won't trust you, Lucas warned. They've learned not to trust adults, especially adults with authority. Then you come with us, Hammer said. They trust you? Lucas hesitated. Some of them. We had an understanding on the street. We didn't talk much, but we looked out for each other. That's enough, Hammer stood. Let's move. The next 18 hours blurred into controlled chaos. Lucas rode with Hammer and 3 other bikers in a van that had been converted into a mobile interview station. Warm blankets, hot food, medical supplies, everything designed to make traumatized kids feel safe enough to talk. They found Sarah Martinez first, huddled in a sleeping bag outside the Green Line station, her face hollow with exhaustion. She was 14, but looked 30. The kind of aging that came from surviving things that should have killed you. She recognized Lucas immediately. Martinez, heard you were still around. Sarah, these people want to help. They're building a case against Thornton. Sarah's eyes went hard. Yeah? Who are they? Hammer knelt down, making himself smaller, less threatening. My name's Mike Thompson. I used to work for the FBI. These men are with me. We're gathering evidence to put Derek Thornton in prison for what he did to you and 33 other kids. Lucas has recordings, photos, financial records, but we need your testimony. We need you to tell us what happened at Lakeside. Why should I believe you? Because Lucas vouches for us, Hammer said simply. And because I'm guessing nobody's believed you for a long time. I'm asking you to try one more time. Sarah looked at Lucas. For real? For real, Lucas said. They helped me last night when I had nothing. They're going after Thornton the right way, legal, by the book. But they need us to tell the truth. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, I'll talk. They brought her to the van, fed her. Doc Martinez examined her gently, documenting scars, signs of old injuries that had healed wrong, severe malnutrition. Then Hammer turned on a recording device. Sarah, can you tell us about the food at Lakeside? What food? Sarah's laugh was bitter. Thornton billed the state for 3 meals a day, 1,800 calories per kid. We got maybe 1 meal, tops. Oatmeal in the morning if you got there early enough. Maybe some bread and peanut butter at night. The good food, the fresh stuff, the meat and vegetables, that went into a locked pantry. Staff took it home. How do you know? Because I watched them. I saw Director Morrison loading boxes into his car every Friday. Steaks, chicken, fresh fruit, food that was supposed to feed us. Did you tell anyone? I told my social worker, Karen Mills. She came for a site visit, asked how things were. I told her we were hungry all the time. She said I was exaggerating, that Thornton ran a quality program and I should be grateful. Sarah's voice went flat. 2 days later, Thornton called me into his office, said I was spreading malicious rumors, said if I kept lying about the program, I'd be discharged for behavioral issues. What did you do? I stopped talking, kept my head down. Lasted another 3 months before he kicked me out anyway for stealing food from the kitchen. She wiped her eyes. I took 2 apples. I was so hungry I couldn't sleep. He caught me and called it theft. Said I was proof that some kids can't be helped. Doc Martinez's hands clenched. Hammer's expression stayed carefully neutral as he took notes. They found Marcus Webb at the library, small and skinny and scared. He was 8 years old and had been on the street for 7 months. When Doc examined him, he found untreated dental infections, evidence of old broken ribs that had healed on their own, and malnutrition severe enough that it had stunted his growth. Marcus told them about the cold, how Thornton kept the heat at 60 degrees to save money, how kids slept 3 to a bed, sharing blankets because 1 wasn't enough, how he'd gotten sick with pneumonia, and staff had given him Tylenol and told him to tough it out, how his roommate had begged them to take Marcus to a doctor and got punished with isolation in the basement for causing disruption. There's a basement? Hammer asked quietly. Marcus nodded. Where they put kids who cause problems. It's dark and cold and you can't hear anything. They left me there for 2 days once because I cried about missing my mom. Lucas felt sick. He'd heard rumors about the basement, but had never seen it himself. They interviewed 11 former residents that first night. Every story was the same. Hunger, cold, medical neglect, isolation, punishment for speaking up. Social workers who didn't believe them. A system designed to warehouse children as cheaply as possible, while Derek Thornton pocketed the difference. By dawn, they had signed statements from 11 witnesses, comprehensive medical documentation, and enough testimony to paint a picture of systematic abuse that made even hardened bikers struggle to maintain composure. Ghost Williams was still working when Lucas stumbled into the firehouse at 6 a.m., exhausted. The accountant had 3 monitors running, spreadsheets scrolling past faster than Lucas could track. I found it, Ghost said without looking up. The Ghost Resident Scheme. Thornton has been billing the state for an average of 14 discharged children per month across all 11 facilities for the last 27 months. Average payment is $187 per child per day. He pulled up a calculation. 14 kids times 30 days times $187 times 11 facilities times 27 months. That's just over $4.1 million in fraudulent billing. Can you prove it? Professor Davis asked, appearing beside Lucas with coffee. I can prove it mathematically, and I can show the discrepancy between reported census and actual occupancy. Ghost pulled up another screen. Look at Lakeside Main Facility. November 2024. Thornton reported 31 residents to the state for billing purposes. But the food delivery records show orders for 18 kids. The utility usage shows occupancy consistent with 20 people maximum. The laundry service shows bed linens for 19. Every data point confirms the actual census was at least 12 kids lower than what he billed for. That's solid, Professor said. We can present that. Chen came in looking exhausted, phone pressed to her ear. She hung up and turned to Reaper. I just got off with Detective Sandra Morrison from Internal Affairs. She's interested, very interested. Apparently Thornton's name has come up before in connection with other investigations, but nothing ever stuck. She wants to meet with us, see what we have. When? This afternoon, 2 p.m. She's bringing someone from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Reaper nodded. Good. Professor, I need you to put together a presentation. Everything we have, organized for prosecutors. Ghost, can you have your financial analysis ready? Give me 3 more hours. Doc, status on medical documentation? Doc Martinez looked up from his laptop. 11 comprehensive exams completed. All 11 show evidence of chronic malnutrition, multiple cases of untreated injuries, dental neglect across the board. I've got one kid with a broken arm that healed at the wrong angle because nobody took him to a doctor. Another with scarring consistent with second-degree burns that were never properly treated. This isn't just neglect. This is systematic deprivation. Lucas felt Chen's hand on his shoulder. You should get some rest. You've been up for over 24 hours. I can't sleep. Not yet. Lucas, my father died investigating this, Lucas said, his voice breaking. He died because he got too close to the truth and Thornton had him killed. I need to see this through. I need to make sure his death meant something. Reaper heard that, crossed the room and knelt beside Lucas's chair. Your father's death already means something, son. It means he was the kind of man who stood up for kids who couldn't protect themselves. It means he chose what was right over what was easy. And it means he raised a son with the same kind of courage. He paused. But he'd also want you to take care of yourself. You can't help anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. What if Thornton runs? What if he figures out we're coming and disappears before we can arrest him? He won't run, Reaper said with absolute certainty. Men like Thornton never think they're going to lose. They're too arrogant, too convinced of their own untouchability. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else. That arrogance is going to be what destroys him. The meeting with Detective Morrison and Assistant U.S. Attorney James Chen happened in a private room at the state's attorney's office. Lucas sat between Reaper and Sarah Chen, his father's jacket a shield against the intimidation of official authority. Morrison was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and no nonsense. Chen was younger, maybe 35, with the focused intensity of a prosecutor who'd built a career on complex cases. Professor Davis presented the evidence methodically. Financial analysis showing $4.1 million in fraudulent billing. Medical documentation of 11 children showing systematic neglect. Witness testimony from former residents describing abuse. Emails and internal documents proving Thornton knew exactly what he was doing. And finally, the videos. Thornton's voice filling the room, casual and confident, talking about ghost residents and system garbage and optimization strategies. Morrison and Chen watched in silence. When the last video ended, Morrison looked at Lucas. How old were you when you recorded these? 13 when I started, 14 when he kicked me out. You've been carrying this evidence for how long? 9 months before the expulsion, 19 months total. Chen leaned forward. Lucas, why didn't you go to the police immediately after he discharged you? Lucas met his eyes. Because I'm a homeless kid with a dead cop father and a history in the system. Who was going to believe me? Thornton has a spotless reputation. He sits on charity boards. He gives speeches about helping troubled youth. I'm nobody. You're not nobody, Morrison said firmly. You're a witness with concrete evidence of felony fraud and child endangerment, and based on what I'm seeing here, you might also be a witness to murder if your father's death wasn't an accident. Lucas felt the room tilt. You believe me? I believe the evidence, Morrison said, and the evidence is damning. Mr. Chen, what's your assessment? The federal prosecutor was already making notes. Wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement of federal funds, child endangerment across multiple counts, possibly obstruction of justice if we can connect Thornton to Robert Martinez's death. We're looking at federal charges that could put him away for 30 years minimum. How fast can you move? Reaper asked. We'll need to verify everything, interview witnesses independently, get warrants for financial records and facility access. Chen looked at his watch. If we push hard, we can have arrest warrants ready by Monday morning. But I need your cooperation. All of you. This has to be by the book. That's all we're asking for, Reaper said. Justice. The right way. Morrison stood. I'm going to make some calls. Get a team together. Lucas, I need you to walk me through everything you know about Thornton's operation. Every facility, every staff member, every piece of evidence you've collected. Can you do that? Lucas nodded. Good. Let's get to work. The next 36 hours were a blur of activity. Lucas gave statement after statement, walking prosecutors through 9 months of careful documentation. Hammer's teams found 23 of the 34 former residents. 21 agreed to testify. Ghost's financial analysis expanded to show not just the Ghost resident fraud, but also kickback schemes with suppliers, falsified inspection reports, and payments to social workers for closing abuse complaints. The web of corruption spread wider than anyone had initially suspected. Doc's medical examinations revealed patterns of neglect so systematic they could only be intentional. Children with preventable conditions left untreated. Dental problems ignored until kids lost teeth. Injuries that required professional medical care treated with over-the-counter medication. And through it all, Lucas stayed awake, driven by something deeper than exhaustion. His father had died for this. 34 kids had suffered for this. Maya Chen had nearly died because a broken system kept a monster in power. Sunday night at 11 p.m., Chen called Reaper. We have the warrants. Federal agents will execute them at 6 a.m. tomorrow. All 11 facilities simultaneously. Thornton's residence, his office, his vehicles, everything. We're also arresting Karen Mills and 3 other social workers who took payments for closing complaints. Reaper turned to Lucas. It's happening, son. Tomorrow morning, we end this. Lucas touched his father's badge, the one Chen had returned from evidence storage that afternoon. Detective Robert Martinez. He'd carried this badge for 15 years, protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Now his son was finishing what he'd started. Dad would be proud, Lucas whispered. He already is, Reaper said quietly. And so am I. The rumble started at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before the federal raids were scheduled to begin. 180 motorcycles rolled through Chicago's pre-dawn darkness in perfect formation, heading toward 11 different locations across the city. Lucas rode behind Reaper, his father's badge tucked inside his jacket, his heart hammering against his ribs. They weren't participating in the arrests. That was FBI territory. But Reaper had made it clear to Special Agent Marcus Stone that the Hells Angels would be present as witnesses, as protection for the children who'd be evacuated, as a reminder that these kids weren't alone anymore. Stone had agreed. Barely. The main lakeside facility sat on the south side, a 3-story brick building that looked respectable from the outside. Lucas had lived there for 11 months. He knew every corner, every shadow, every place where Thornton's cruelty had left marks. At exactly 6 a.m., 4 black SUVs pulled up to the front entrance. FBI agents emerged, moving with practiced efficiency. Stone led the team, warrant in hand. Lucas watched from across the street as agents pounded on the door. Watched as Derek Thornton himself answered, wearing an expensive bathrobe, his expression shifting from confusion to shock to carefully controlled anger in the span of 3 seconds. "What is the meaning of this?" Thornton's voice carried across the street. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" Stone held up the warrant. "Derek Thornton, we have a federal warrant to search these premises and seize financial records, computers, and files related to Lakeside Youth Services. We also have a warrant for your arrest on charges of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement of federal funds, and child endangerment." Thornton's face went white. "This is absurd. I'm calling my lawyer." "You can call from federal custody," Stone gestured to 2 agents. "Cuff him." Lucas felt Reaper's hand on his shoulder as they watched Thornton being led out in handcuffs, his perfect reputation crumbling in real time. Staff members were being rounded up, separated, interviewed. Children were being evacuated to emergency foster placements that had been arranged in advance. "How does it feel?" Reaper asked quietly. "Like I can breathe for the first time in 19 months, Lucas said. But the satisfaction was short-lived. Agent Stone crossed the street 20 minutes later, his expression grim. "We found something. Lucas, I need you to confirm if this is what you mentioned in your statement about the basement." Lucas's stomach dropped. "You found it?" "Show me." Lucas followed Stone inside, past the common room where he'd spent countless hours pretending to be invisible, down the hallway to the maintenance room. Stone opened the door. 3 FBI agents stood inside, and one of them had removed a panel from the wall, revealing stairs leading down into darkness. "The building plans don't show a basement," Stone said. "But you mentioned Thornton had isolation cells. Is this it?" Lucas nodded, his throat tight. "I never went down there myself. But Marcus Webb did. He told me about it." Stone turned on a flashlight and started down. Lucas followed, Reaper right behind him. The basement was worse than Marcus had described. 6 cells, each maybe 8 by 10 feet, concrete walls, no windows, a single bare light bulb in each. The temperature was maybe 50 degrees. In one cell, Lucas saw restraints bolted to the wall. "Jesus Christ," Stone breathed. "How long has this been here?" "I don't know. But kids talked about it. Said Thornton would put you down here for 24, 48 hours if you caused problems. No food, no bathroom, nothing." Stone was already on his radio. "I need a forensics team in the basement immediately. And get the state child welfare director on the phone. I want every single child who was placed in this facility in the last 5 years interviewed by trauma specialists." They found the safe in Thornton's office 30 minutes later. A small fireproof safe hidden behind a false panel, exactly where Lucas had seen Thornton access it once through the ventilation duct. The FBI tech had it open in 6 minutes. Inside, 3 leather-bound ledgers, handwritten, meticulous. The real books. Ghost Williams had been right about the ghost residence scheme. But the ledgers showed something else, something that made Stone's expression go from grim to murderous. "What is it?" Lucas asked. Stone turned one of the ledgers toward him. The entry was dated March 2023. "R. Martinez investigation. Vehicle maintenance arranged. $25,000. Lucas felt the floor disappear beneath him. "That's my father. He died in March 2023. Stone flipped pages, found another entry 2 weeks earlier. Detective Martinez requesting financial records subpoena. Contact J. Pearson, re-interference, $15,000. And another, a month before that. Martinez surveillance, daily reports, H. Morrison, $500 per week. He had my father followed, Lucas whispered. He knew Dad was investigating. He knew everything. Stone was already on his phone. Morrison, it's Stone. I need Chicago PD homicide here immediately. We've got evidence linking Derek Thornton to the Robert Martinez death. Yeah, the detective who went off Lakeshore Drive in 2023. It wasn't an accident. We have documentary proof Thornton paid for vehicle sabotage. Reaper's hand gripped Lucas's shoulder hard. Your father was murdered. You were right all along. Lucas couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 19 months he'd suspected, but having proof was different. His father hadn't died in an accident. He'd been murdered by the same man who later threw Lucas into the street to die. I want to see him, Lucas said. I want to see Thornton. Lucas, I need to see his face. I need him to know that I know what he did. Stone considered for a moment, then nodded. 5 minutes, under supervision, and you don't touch him. They brought Lucas to the FBI Mobile Command Center, where Thornton sat in custody, his lawyer already present. Kenneth Morrison, expensive suit, reputation for getting wealthy criminals minimal sentences. Thornton looked up when Lucas entered. For just a second, fear flashed across his face. Then the mask came back, the smooth professional persona. Ah, Lucas Martinez. I should have known you were behind this circus. You killed my father, Lucas said quietly. Morrison held up a hand. My client has no comment on... I have the ledgers, Lucas interrupted. $25,000 for vehicle maintenance arranged. That's code for sabotage. You had someone cut his brake lines because he was getting too close to exposing your fraud. Thornton's jaw tightened. You have no idea what you're talking about. Your father died in a tragic accident. The FBI has your handwriting. They have the payment records. They have everything. Lucas stepped closer, Stone's hand on his shoulder keeping him in check. You called me system garbage. You said nobody would believe a homeless kid. You were wrong. You're a liar and a thief who stole from my facility. I took 2 apples because you were starving us. Lucas's voice cracked. You were billing the state for 3 meals a day and feeding us once if we were lucky. You pocketed $4 million while children went hungry, while they got sick and you denied them medical care, while they froze because you kept the heat at 60 degrees to save money. Careful, boy. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Lucas pulled out his father's badge, held it up so Thornton could see it clearly. My father was Detective Robert Martinez. He spent 15 years protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. You killed him because he was about to expose you. Then you put me in your facility, tried to break me, kicked me out to die on the street. But I survived. And I documented everything you did. Every dollar you stole, every child you hurt, every crime you committed. Thornton's face had gone red. You have nothing that will stick in court. My lawyers will... Your lawyers can't save you from federal wire fraud charges, embezzlement, conspiracy, child endangerment, and now felony murder in the death of a police officer. Lucas's voice was steel. The FBI has 47 photos, 3 videos, witness testimony from 21 former residents, medical documentation of systematic abuse, and your own ledgers proving you paid to have my father killed. You're going to prison for the rest of your life. Morrison was whispering urgently in Thornton's ear, but Thornton wasn't listening. He was staring at Lucas with pure hatred. You were nothing, Thornton hissed. A throwaway. System garbage. You should have died in that warehouse. But I didn't. Lucas met his eyes without flinching. I gave my coat to a freezing child and saved her life. That brought 180 bikers to my side. Men who actually understand what protecting children means. They helped me finish what my father started. We brought you down legally, properly, with evidence you can't dispute. And now everyone is going to know exactly what kind of monster you are. Stone pulled Lucas back gently. That's enough. Let's go. As they walked out, Lucas heard Morrison trying to calm Thornton down, heard Thornton's voice rising in panic, and felt something settle in his chest. Not satisfaction, exactly. His father was still dead. 34 kids had still suffered. But justice was happening. Finally. The raids at the other 10 facilities produced similar results. 5 facility directors arrested on site. Karen Mills and 3 other social workers taken into federal custody. Computers seized, files confiscated. Children evacuated to safe placements. By noon, the news had broken across every major outlet in Chicago. Massive child welfare fraud uncovered. FBI arrests charity director in $4 million scheme. Lakeside Youth Services shut down after abuse allegations. Lucas watched the coverage from the firehouse, Maya asleep on his lap. She'd been released from the hospital that morning, fully recovered from her hypothermia, and had immediately attached herself to Coat Boy. Chen sat beside him, her arm around his shoulders. You did this, Lucas. You saved all those kids. My father did this, Lucas said quietly. I just finished it. The preliminary hearing happened 3 days later. Lucas sat in the federal courthouse, surrounded by 180 bikers who'd filled every available seat in the gallery. Thornton was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his expensive clothes and smooth persona stripped away. Assistant U.S. Attorney James Chen presented the government's case. Financial records showing $4.1 million in fraudulent billing, medical evidence of 21 children showing systematic neglect, witness testimony from former residents, video recordings of Thornton discussing the fraud in his own words, and finally, the ledgers. Proof that Thornton had paid $25,000 for vehicle maintenance 2 weeks before Detective Robert Martinez's car went off Lakeshore Drive with brake line failure. The judge listened in silence. When Chen finished, she looked at Thornton with an expression of absolute contempt. Mr. Thornton, I have been on the bench for 32 years. In that time, I have seen many cases of fraud, embezzlement, and abuse of power. But I have never seen anything quite as depraved as what's been presented here today. You were entrusted with the care of society's most vulnerable children. Instead of protecting them, you starved them, neglected them, abused them, and profited from their suffering. And when a police officer attempted to expose your crimes, you had him murdered. Thornton's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client maintains his innocence. Your client can maintain whatever he likes. Bail is denied. Mr. Thornton will remain in federal custody pending trial. She banged her gavel. And, Mr. Chen, I want this case moved to trial as quickly as possible. These children deserve justice without delay. As they led Thornton out, he looked directly at Lucas. The hatred was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Fear. The realization that he'd lost everything. Lucas felt Chen's hand squeeze his shoulder, felt Reaper's presence behind him like a wall of protection, felt Maya's small hand slip into his. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Stone held a press conference on the steps, laying out the scope of Thornton's crimes. Lucas stood behind him, flanked by bikers, and listened as the special agent detailed how one 14-year-old boy had documented evidence for 9 months, how he'd survived 19 months of homelessness, how he'd nearly died saving a child he didn't know. "Lucas Martinez is a hero," Stone said. "He exposed corruption that had gone unchecked for years. He gave voice to 34 children who'd been thrown away by a system that was supposed to protect them. And he did it with courage and integrity that should shame every adult who looked the other way." A reporter called out, Lucas, how do you feel knowing Derek Thornton killed your father?" Lucas stepped forward, his voice steady. "I feel like my father's death wasn't in vain. He started this investigation because he believed every child deserved protection. He died trying to save kids he'd never met. I'm just grateful I got to finish what he started, and that Derek Thornton will spend the rest of his life paying for what he did." "What happens to you now? Where will you go?" Lucas looked at Chen, at Reaper, at Maya. "I'm going home. With my family." The formal adoption hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later, but Chen had already filed emergency guardianship papers. Lucas moved into her house that afternoon, into a bedroom that had been hastily set up with new furniture, new clothes, everything a teenage boy needed. That night, lying in an actual bed for the first time in 19 months, Lucas pulled out his father's badge and held it to his chest. "We got him, Dad," he whispered into the darkness. "Thornton's going to prison. All those kids are safe now. You can rest." He fell asleep that way, the badge warm against his heart. And for the first time since his father died, Lucas Martinez didn't have nightmares. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Lucas testified for 3 days, walking the jury through every piece of evidence he'd collected, every video he'd recorded, every moment of the 9 months he'd spent documenting Thornton's crimes while living in his facility. 21 former residents testified. Each one told their story of hunger, cold, neglect, and abuse, of a system that failed them and the man who profited from their suffering. Ghost Williams presented the financial analysis, showing exactly how Thornton had stolen $4.1 million through ghost resident billing, supply fraud, and kickback schemes. Dr. Martinez presented medical evidence that made several jurors cry. Children with preventable conditions left untreated. Injuries that required professional care treated with over-the-counter medication. Malnutrition severe enough to cause permanent developmental damage. And finally, Chicago PD presented evidence that Thornton had paid Harold Morrison, a former police mechanic, $25,000 to sabotage Detective Robert Martinez's vehicle. Morrison had turned state's evidence in exchange for a reduced sentence, providing detailed testimony about how he'd cut the brake lines 2 weeks before the detective's fatal crash. The defense tried to argue that Lucas was a troubled youth with a grudge, that the videos were taken out of context, that the financial discrepancies were accounting errors. But the evidence was too overwhelming, too well documented, too damning. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement of federal funds, 34 counts of child endangerment, conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Detective Robert Martinez. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge showed no mercy. "Derek Thornton, you have been convicted of crimes that demonstrate a complete absence of human decency. You stole from the state, you abused children, and you murdered a police officer who is attempting to stop your criminal enterprise. I hereby sentence you to 37 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for 25 years. I hope you spend every day of that sentence thinking about the lives you destroyed and the children you hurt." Lucas sat in the gallery, Chen's arm around him, Maya on his lap, surrounded by 180 bikers who'd become his extended family. When they led Thornton away, the man looked smaller somehow, diminished, no longer the powerful director who'd once called Lucas system garbage. Outside, Stone shook Lucas's hand. "You did good, kid. Your father would be proud." "Thank you for believing me." "Thank you for being brave enough to speak up." Stone paused. "I meant what I said in that press conference. You're a hero. Don't ever forget that." That night, Chen made Lucas's favorite dinner. Actually, she'd asked him what his favorite was, and he'd broken down crying because nobody had asked him that in 2 years. She made it anyway. Spaghetti and meatballs, garlic bread, salad. A normal family dinner. Maya chattered about her day at preschool. Chen talked about a difficult call at the firehouse. Reaper stopped by with news that Angel's Watch had received its non-profit status and was officially launching next month. And Lucas sat there, surrounded by people who loved him, eating food that tasted like home, and realized that giving away his coat that December night had saved more than Maya Chen's life. It had saved his own. 3 weeks after Thornton's sentencing, Lucas sat in Dr. Patricia Knowles' office for his first therapy session, his hands gripping the arms of the chair so hard his knuckles had gone white. "I don't know what I'm supposed to say," Lucas admitted. Dr. Knowles, 50-something with kind eyes and gray streaks in her dark hair, smiled gently. "You don't have to say anything you're not ready to share. We can start simple. How are you sleeping?" "Better than I did in the warehouse. Worse than I should." Lucas hesitated. "I keep dreaming about the cold, about finding Maya but not getting to her in time, about my father's car going off the bridge and me watching from the shore but not being able to stop it." "That's called trauma, Lucas. Your brain is processing things it couldn't process while you were in survival mode. For 19 months, you were focused on staying alive. Now that you're safe, your mind has space to feel everything you pushed down." "How do I make it stop?" "You don't make it stop. You learn to live with it, to process it, to let it become part of your story instead of the whole story." She leaned forward. "Lucas, you survived something that would have broken most adults. You documented abuse while living inside that abuse. You gave your only protection to a stranger's child. You exposed a criminal conspiracy. Those aren't small things. Your brain needs time to catch up with everything your body went through." Lucas felt tears building. "I should feel better. Thornton's in prison. I have a home, a family. Maya's safe. Why do I still wake up at 3 a.m. checking that the door is locked?" "Because safety isn't a switch you flip. It's something you learn to believe in again, slowly, over time. And that's okay." Dr. Knowles handed him a tissue. "We're going to work through this together. All of it. The grief over your father, the trauma from homelessness, the survivor's guilt about the kids who suffered longer than you did. We'll take it one session at a time." Lucas wiped his eyes. "I want to be okay. For Chen and Maya. They took me in, and I don't want to be broken." "You're not broken, Lucas. You're healing. There's a difference." The sessions became twice weekly. Lucas learned vocabulary for things he'd been feeling but couldn't name. PTSD, hypervigilance, complex trauma. Learned that the nightmares might never fully stop but would get less frequent. Learned that crying wasn't weakness, but release. Chen noticed the difference. 4 weeks in, she found Lucas in the kitchen at 2 a.m. making hot chocolate instead of sitting in the dark having a panic attack. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Bad dream, but Dr. Knowles taught me grounding techniques. 5 things I can see, 4 things I can touch, 3 things I can hear. It helps." Lucas poured a second mug. "Want some?" Chen took it gratefully. Maya had a nightmare tonight too, kept crying about being cold. I sat with her until she fell back asleep. She remembers that night? Some of it. Her therapist says she'll process it as she gets older. Right now, she just knows that Coatboy saved her, and that makes you the safest person in her world, besides me and Reaper. Lucas smiled despite himself. She called me her brother yesterday. Is that okay? I know the adoption isn't final yet, and I don't want to overstep. Lucas, you are her brother. Papers or no papers, you're family. You became family the night you gave her your coat. Chen set down her mug. The court date is set, by the way, 2 weeks from Thursday. Judge Matthews is handling it personally. She said any kid brave enough to take down Derek Thornton deserves an expedited adoption. 2 weeks, Lucas repeated, his voice breaking. I'll really be yours? You already are. Chen pulled him into a hug. But in 2 weeks, it'll be official. School started the following Monday, Lincoln Park High School, sophomore year, and Lucas walked through those doors feeling like everyone could see the 19 months of homelessness written on his skin. You're the kid from the news, someone said within the first 5 minutes. The one who exposed that group home guy. Lucas tensed, waiting for mockery or accusations, or the million ways kids could be cruel. That was incredible, the girl continued. My cousin was in foster care. She always said the system was broken, but nobody believed her. What you did, getting proof, that matters. Lucas exhaled. Thanks. I'm Lucas. Jasmine, if you need help catching up on anything, I'm pretty good at chemistry. The day was easier after that. Most kids either didn't know who he was or were genuinely supportive. His teachers had been briefed by the principal and gave him extensions on assignments, offered tutoring, treated him with the kind of patient kindness that made Lucas's chest tight. At lunch, he sat alone by habit. Then 3 kids joined him. Jasmine from chemistry, a boy named Marcus, who was also in foster care, a girl named Sophie, whose brother had been at Lakeside before Thornton kicked him out. We're starting a support group, Sophie said, for kids who've been through the system or have family who has. You want in? Lucas looked at their faces, saw genuine welcome, and nodded. Yeah, I want in. The first Angel's Watch intervention happened 6 weeks after Thornton's sentencing. A call came through the hotline at 11 p.m. A 13-year-old girl named Emma Rodriguez was sleeping in a park on the west side, having run away from a group home where she claimed the director was selling the girl's medications and pocketing the reimbursements. Reaper mobilized 12 bikers. They found Emma exactly where she'd said she'd be, shivering under a thin blanket, terrified and defensive. Lucas went with them, knelt down beside Emma the way Reaper had once knelt beside him. I'm Lucas. I was homeless for 19 months. I know what you're feeling right now. These people want to help, not hurt you. Emma looked at him with hollow eyes. Nobody helps kids like us. I thought that too, but I was wrong. Let us prove it to you. They brought Emma to the firehouse, fed her. Doc Martinez examined her gently, documenting track marks on her arms where she'd been giving herself insulin shots with needles reused so many times they'd dulled. Emma was diabetic. The group home was supposed to provide fresh needles weekly. They hadn't given her new ones in 2 months. That's medical neglect, Doc said quietly to Reaper. She could get an infection. She could die. Angel's Watch documented everything, contacted the state inspector, the U.S. Attorney's Office, Chicago PD. Within 48 hours, the group home was under investigation. The director was arrested. Emma was placed with a vetted foster family who actually understood how to manage juvenile diabetes. Lucas visited her 2 weeks later, found her healthy, gaining weight, her blood sugar finally under control. You saved my life, Emma said. You saved your own life by calling the hotline. I just helped connect you to people who cared. Still, thank you. Lucas left feeling something shift in his chest. He'd spent 19 months surviving. Now he was helping others do the same. That mattered. That meant something. The weight came back slowly. Lucas had dropped to 108 at his lowest. By 3 months post-rescue, he was at 125. By 4 months, 138. His face filled out. The hollow-eyed look faded. Doc Martinez monitored his progress carefully, adjusting his diet, making sure he gained weight healthily instead of too fast. You're doing great, kid, Doc said during a checkup. All your levels are normalizing. The respiratory damage from those Chicago winters is healing. The frostbite scars are permanent, but they're not causing you pain, right? Right. Good. You're going to be okay, Lucas. Your body's resilient. Give it time. Chen noticed the difference too. Lucas had energy now, could focus in school, didn't get winded walking upstairs. Started joining Reaper for morning runs, building strength he'd lost during those 19 months. You're getting strong, Reaper observed one morning as they finished their 3rd mile. Your father would be proud. I want to be strong enough to protect other kids the way you protected me. Reaper stopped, looked at him seriously. You already are, son. Strength isn't about muscles. It's about character. You had that strength when you were 108 and homeless. The physical part is just catching up to who you've always been. The nightmares came less frequently, but still hit hard when they did. Lucas woke up screaming 3 months in, convinced he was back in the warehouse, convinced Maya was dying in the alley and he couldn't reach her. Chen was there in seconds, turned on the light, sat on the bed. Lucas, you're safe. You're home. Maya's asleep in the next room, healthy and warm. Thornton's in prison. You're safe. It took 10 minutes for Lucas's breathing to slow, for reality to reassert itself over the nightmare. I'm sorry, he gasped. I woke you up. I woke Maya. Don't apologize for trauma responses. They're not your fault. Chen handed him water. Want to talk about it? It's always the same. I find her, but I can't move fast enough. Or I give her my coat, but then I collapse before I reach the firehouse and we both die. Or I reach the firehouse, but you don't believe me and close the door. Lucas's hands shook. I know it's not real. I know we both survived. But my brain won't stop showing me all the ways it could have gone wrong. That's normal. Your brain is processing trauma by exploring all the terrible possibilities that didn't happen. It's trying to make sense of how close you both came to dying. Chen squeezed his hand. But here's what actually happened. You found her. You saved her. You made it to the firehouse. I believed you immediately. Maya's alive because of your courage. That's the real story, not the nightmare. Lucas held on to that, repeated it when the dreams came. We both survived. We're both safe. That's the real story. The call from the Illinois State Legislature came 4 months after the trial. Representative Maria Santos wanted Lucas to testify before the House Committee on Child Welfare Reform. They're drafting the Foster Protection Act, Santos explained over the phone. It's based on your case, Lucas. We want mandatory monthly inspections, financial audits every quarter, youth advocacy boards, anonymous hotlines. But the committee needs to hear from you directly. They need to understand why these reforms matter. Lucas agreed. The testimony happened on a cold January morning. Lucas wore a suit Reaper had bought him, his father's badge in his pocket for courage. He sat at the witness table facing 15 representatives, cameras rolling, knowing his words would be part of the legislative record. Representative Santos introduced him. Lucas Martinez is 14 years old. He spent 19 months homeless after being expelled from Lakeside Youth Services. During that time, he documented evidence of a $4.1 million fraud scheme that led to 37 felony convictions. He saved a 3-year-old child from freezing to death, nearly dying himself in the process. And his courage exposed systematic failures in our child welfare system that we're here today to address. Lucas took a breath and began. My name is Lucas Martinez. My father was Detective Robert Martinez, Chicago PD. He taught me that protecting people who can't protect themselves is the most important thing you can do. He died investigating Derek Thornton. I ended up in Thornton's facility and saw firsthand what happens when the system fails. He talked for 20 minutes about hunger, about cold, about medical neglect, about children disappearing from the census, about social workers who closed complaints without investigating, about a director who called kids system garbage and built wealth on their suffering. I'm not special, Lucas said. I'm just the one who had the tools to document what was happening. My father taught me how to gather evidence, but there are thousands of kids in Illinois foster care right now who don't have those tools, who are suffering in silence because nobody's listening. The Foster Protection Act won't fix everything, but it will make sure kids have ways to be heard, that their complaints get real investigations, that people who hurt them face consequences. He pulled out his father's badge. My dad died trying to protect children he never met. I'm asking you to honor his memory by passing this legislation. By making sure his death and the suffering of 34 kids at Lakeside leads to real change. The room was silent when he finished. Representative Santos had tears in her eyes. Thank you, Lucas. Your testimony will be entered into the record. The Foster Protection Act passed unanimously 3 weeks later. Governor Sarah Patel signed it into law on February 14th, with Lucas and the 21 Lakeside survivors who'd testified at trial standing behind her. This legislation is named the Martinez Foster Protection Act, Governor Patel announced, in honor of Detective Robert Martinez and his son Lucas, whose courage exposed failures in our system and demanded accountability. Illinois will now require monthly, unannounced inspections of all residential facilities, financial audits every 90 days, youth advocacy boards giving children direct input into their care, and a statewide hotline where kids can report abuse anonymously with guaranteed follow-up within 24 hours. She turned to Lucas. You changed the world, son. Never forget that. The Victims Fund distributed $6.8 million to 67 former Lakeside residents. Lucas's share was $380,000. Chen set up a trust that would pay for college, with a stipend for living expenses now. Lucas donated $50,000 to Angels Watch, another $20,000 to establish the Robert Martinez Scholarship for foster youth pursuing criminal justice degrees. The rest he saved, knowing college was 4 years away, and he wanted to be ready. Other survivors used their money differently. Sarah Martinez, the 14-year-old who'd been the first one Lucas helped find, used hers for an apartment and GED classes. Marcus Webb's was put in trust until he turned 18. Some kids bought clothes, food, stability they'd never had. The 1-year anniversary of the December night when everything changed arrived with snow and freezing temperatures. Lucas stood at his father's grave with Chen, Maya, and Reaper, a wreath in his hands. Hey, Dad, Lucas said quietly. It's been a year. A lot has happened. Thornton's in prison. The Foster Protection Act passed. Angels Watch has helped 247 kids in Illinois alone. I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. I have a family now. Chen and Maya. Reaper and 180 bikers who'd go to war for me. I'm getting A's in school. I'm healthy. I'm safe. He set the wreath down. I know you can't answer, but I need you to know that what you started, we finished. The kids you wanted to protect are safer now. Your death wasn't for nothing. I made sure of that." Maya slipped her small hand into Lucas's. "Daddy in heaven?" "Yeah, sweetheart. My daddy's in heaven." "He proud of you?" Lucas's throat tightened. "I hope so." Reaper put a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "He is, son. Absolutely he is." The adoption finalization happened 2 days later in Judge Matthews's chambers. Lucas stood between Chen and Maya, his hand raised, taking an oath to be part of their family legally and permanently. "Do you, Lucas Martinez, agree to accept Sarah Chen as your legal guardian and mother, and to accept all the rights and responsibilities that come with being her son?" "I do," Lucas said, his voice breaking. "And do you, Sarah Chen, agree to accept Lucas Martinez as your legal son, to provide for him, protect him, and love him as your own child?" "I do," Chen said firmly. "Then by the power vested in me by the state of Illinois, I declare this adoption final and binding. Lucas Martinez Chen, welcome to your forever family." The moment the gavel fell, Maya cheered. Chen pulled Lucas into a hug that threatened to crack his ribs. Reaper wiped his eyes, not bothering to hide the tears. Outside the courthouse, 180 motorcycles waited, engines running. As Lucas emerged with his new family, the bikers revved in unison, a roar of celebration that shook the street. Lucas climbed onto the back of Reaper's bike, Chen and Maya in a car behind them, and they rode through Chicago in formation. A parade of chrome and leather, celebrating one kid who'd been thrown away by the system and reclaimed by a family who chose him. That night, in the home he could finally call his without qualification, Lucas lay in bed thinking about the year that had passed. December to December, homeless to housed, alone to surrounded by family, invisible to seen. He thought about Maya, asleep next door, healthy and safe, and starting to forget the night she'd nearly died. Thought about Chen, who'd claimed him as family the moment he'd saved her niece. Thought about Reaper, who'd mobilized an army because one kid had shown courage. Thought about his father, who'd taught him that protecting others mattered more than protecting yourself. Lucas pulled out the police badge, held it to his chest the way he did every night. "I did it, Dad. I finished what you started, and I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make sure no kid gets thrown away like I did. I'm going to spend my life protecting people who can't protect themselves, just like you taught me." He fell asleep with the badge warm against his heart, and for the first time in 2 years, Lucas Martinez didn't dream of the cold. 3 years moved fast when you were building something that mattered. Lucas stood in front of his bedroom mirror, adjusting his tie, 17 years old, and about to graduate high school as valedictorian. The hollow-cheeked homeless kid who'd weighed 108 was gone, replaced by someone who'd gained 37 pounds, who ran 5 miles every morning with Reaper, who looked like he belonged in the world instead of hiding from it. "Lucas, we're going to be late!" Maya's voice carried up the stairs, impatient and bossy in the way only 6-year-olds could manage. Lucas grabbed his father's badge from the dresser, slipped it into his suit pocket where it always went for important moments, and headed downstairs. Chen waited at the bottom, her battalion chief uniform pressed and perfect. She'd been promoted 18 months ago, youngest woman to make chief in CFD history. The press had asked if it was because of the Thornton case publicity. She told them it was because she was damn good at her job, and they could verify that with her personnel file. "You ready?" Chen asked. "I think so. The speech is... I'm worried it's too much, too personal." "Lucas, you exposed a $4 million fraud scheme when you were 14. You testified before the state legislature. You helped build an organization that's saved over 800 kids in 3 years. If anyone's earned the right to get personal, it's you." Maya appeared wearing her flower girl dress from Chen's wedding last year. She'd insisted on wearing it to Lucas's graduation because it's fancy, and Lucas is fancy today. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," Lucas said, kneeling down. "You look fancy," Maya declared. "Mama says you're giving a big speech. Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Don't be. You're the bravest person I know. You gave me your coat when you were freezing. That's way scarier than talking to people." Lucas pulled her into a hug, this little girl who barely remembered the night that changed everything, but who'd been shaped by it anyway. She wanted to be a firefighter like Mama Sarah, wanted to save people. The therapist said Maya had processed her trauma by deciding to become a helper, and that was healthy as long as they monitored it. "Okay," Lucas said, standing. "Let's go graduate." The auditorium was packed, 300 graduating seniors, their families filling every seat. Lucas spotted Reaper in the third row, 71 years old and still intimidating in his Hell's Angels vest. Beside him, 50 more bikers who'd become Lucas's extended family: Doc Martinez, Ghost Williams, Hammer Thompson, Professor Davis. And in the front row, 23 former Lakeside residents who'd survived and thrived. Sarah Martinez, now 18 and studying social work at Northwestern on the Robert Martinez Scholarship. Marcus Webb, 11 years old and healthy, sitting with his adoptive parents. Emma Rodriguez, 16, who worked part-time at Angels Watch, helping other kids who called the hotline desperate and scared. Luca walked across the stage to receive his diploma, magna cum laude, full scholarship to Northwestern University for criminal justice. The bikers stood and applauded, a wall of leather and chrome that made the principal smile despite the unconventional support section. Then came the valedictorian speech. Lucas approached the podium, looked out at 300 classmates who'd watched him transform from the traumatized kid who'd appeared sophomore year to someone who'd found purpose in his pain. 3 years ago, Lucas began, his voice steady. I was homeless. I'd been living in an abandoned warehouse for 19 months, trying to survive Chicago winters with nothing but my father's police jacket and the survival skills he taught me before he died. I was invisible. Thousands of people walked past me every day and didn't see me. Or they saw me and decided I wasn't their problem. The auditorium went silent. On December 23rd, I found a 3-year-old girl locked in a shopping cart in -8-degree weather. She was dying. I had maybe 3 minutes to decide, keep my coat and save myself, or give it to her and risk dying to get her somewhere safe. I gave her my coat. I carried her 6 blocks through a blizzard. I got her to Firehouse 51 with about 90 seconds before my body would have shut down completely. Lucas saw Maya in the front row, holding Chen's hand, watching him with huge eyes. That choice brought 180 Hell's Angels bikers to my rescue. Not because of what I had nothing, but because of what I did. I put a stranger's child ahead of my own survival. That matters in their world. That matters in any world worth living in. He pulled out his father's badge. My dad was Detective Robert Martinez, Chicago PD. He taught me that protecting people who can't protect themselves is the most important job anyone can have. He died investigating a fraud scheme that was stealing from foster children. I ended up in that same system, saw the abuse firsthand, and spent 9 months documenting evidence while living inside that nightmare. When I got kicked out and became homeless, I kept that evidence, kept believing that someday someone would listen. Lucas looked at the Lakeside survivors. Someone did listen. The Hells Angels helped me expose a $4.1 million fraud operation, helped get justice for 67 kids who'd been thrown away by a system designed to protect them. And that started something bigger than any of us expected. He gestured to Reaper. Angel's Watch was founded 3 years ago, in the weeks after Derek Thornton's arrest. It started as 12 bikers in Chicago who decided to create a hotline where kids in trouble could call for help. Today, Angel's Watch operates in 12 states with 473 volunteers. We've helped 847 children escape abuse, documented corruption in 32 facilities, and contributed to legislation in 8 states modeled on Illinois' Martinez Foster Protection Act. The statistics felt surreal even as Lucas said them. 847 lives changed because he'd given away a coat. But numbers don't tell the whole story, Lucas continued. The story is in the faces. Sarah Martinez, who's here today, was homeless when Angel's Watch found her. Now she's studying to become a social worker so she can fix the system from the inside. Emma Rodriguez called our hotline at 13, desperate and scared. Now she answers that same hotline, helping other kids find hope. Marcus Webb was 8 years old when we found him, suffering from untreated medical conditions. Now he's healthy, thriving, and wants to be a doctor. Lucas's voice grew stronger. I'm telling you this because every single person in this auditorium will face moments where someone needs help, where you see suffering and have to decide if it's your problem. Here's what I learned from being homeless, from being invisible, from being system garbage that society threw away. Everyone's problem is your problem, if you have the power to do something about it. He looked directly at his classmates. You don't need a motorcycle or a leather vest or a badge to change someone's life. You just need to care enough to act. See the kid at school who's always hungry. Buy them lunch. Notice the classmate who seems withdrawn. Ask if they're okay. Hear something that sounds like abuse. Report it to someone who can help. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Maya was crying now, and Chen had an arm around her. Reaper's expression was pure pride. My father taught me that hesitation kills people, that in an emergency, you assess, you decide, you act. I'm asking each of you to live that way, to be the person who sees invisible children and makes them visible, to be the adult who believes kids when they're brave enough to tell the truth, to be the voice that refuses to stay silent when silence allows harm. Lucas felt tears building, but pushed through. 3 years ago, I gave my coat to a freezing toddler because her life mattered more than my comfort. That one choice saved her life, exposed massive corruption, created an organization that's helped hundreds of kids, and gave me a family when I had nothing. I'm graduating today as valedictorian with a full scholarship to Northwestern. I'm healthy, I'm safe, I'm loved. None of that would be possible if I'd walked away from Maya that night. He looked at Chen, at Maya, at Reaper. So my challenge to the Lincoln Park High School class of 2026 is this. Be the person who doesn't walk away. Be the one who stops, who helps, who makes the choice to put someone else's survival ahead of your own convenience. You have more power to change the world than you realize. Use it. Lucas held up his father's badge one final time. My dad died protecting children he never met. I'm going to spend my life doing the same thing. I hope some of you will join me. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. The bikers were loudest, but the families joined in, and Lucas saw teachers wiping their eyes, parents nodding, students looking at him with new understanding. The video of Lucas's speech hit YouTube that night. By morning, it had 2 million views. By the end of the week, 14 million. By the end of the month, 47 million people had watched Lucas Martinez challenge the world to stop walking away from children in need. The media requests flooded in. 60 Minutes wanted an interview. The Today Show, NPR.
Lucas said yes to all of it, understanding that his father's badge and his own story had given him a platform to create change. The documentary premiered 2 weeks after graduation. The Coat, How One Boy Exposed a System, had been in production for 18 months, following Lucas through his final year of high school, interviewing the Lakeside survivors, showing the Angels Watch operations, and documenting the ripple effect of that December night. Lucas sat in the theater between Chen and Maya for the premiere, Reaper and 80 bikers filling the rows behind them. The film opened with footage of Lucas at 14, thin and traumatized, giving his first testimony to the FBI. Then cut to Lucas at 17, healthy and strong, speaking at a youth advocacy conference. The contrast was devastating. The documentary showed everything. The warehouse where Lucas had lived, the alley where he'd found Maya, the firehouse where everything changed. Interviews with Doc Martinez describing Lucas's medical condition that night, with Hammer Thompson talking about finding the 34 kids Lucas had tracked, with Professor Davis explaining the legal strategy that brought Thornton down, and interviews with Derek Thornton in federal prison, still maintaining he'd done nothing wrong, still calling the kids' system garbage, still refusing accountability, even with a 37-year sentence. The film ended with Lucas visiting his father's grave, talking to Robert Martinez about finishing what he'd started, about using the badge to protect others, about building a legacy that mattered. When the lights came up, there wasn't a dry eye in the theater. The documentary won awards: Emmy for Outstanding Documentary, Peabody Award for Social Impact Journalism. But more importantly, it sparked action. 7 states introduced foster care reform legislation modeled on the Martinez Act within 3 months. Federal oversight of group homes increased. CPS agencies nationwide implemented youth advocacy boards. Lucas's story became required viewing in social work programs at 16 universities. Police academies used it to train officers on recognizing child abuse. And most importantly, kids in trouble started calling hotlines, started believing that someone might actually listen. Angels Watch International launched 4 months after graduation. Reaper stood at the podium for the announcement, Lucas beside him, reporters from 30 outlets covering the event. "We're expanding beyond the United States," Reaper said. "We've got chapters forming in Canada, the UK, Australia, and Germany. 473 volunteers becoming 4,000. The goal is simple: make sure every child on this planet who needs help can reach someone who'll actually provide it." A reporter called out, "Mr. Johnson, critics say bikers shouldn't be involved in child welfare, that it's not appropriate. How do you respond?" Reaper's expression went hard. "I respond by saying we've saved 847 children in 3 years. We've exposed 32 corrupt facilities. We've contributed to legislation in 8 states. Show me another organization with that track record, and we'll talk about what's appropriate." Lucas took the microphone. "The bikers who saved my life didn't do it because it was appropriate. They did it because it was right. Because a 14-year-old kid nearly died saving a stranger's child. And that kind of courage deserved backup. Angels Watch exists because sometimes the people who look the scariest are actually the safest. Because brotherhood means protecting the vulnerable, not just your own." The press conference footage went viral. Within a week, Angels Watch received donations totaling $4.7 million, enough to fund operations in 12 countries, enough to hire full-time staff, enough to build something that would outlast any individual person. The call from FBI Supervisory Agent Marcus Stone came in July. Lucas was working at the Angels Watch office, reviewing hotline reports when his phone rang. "Lucas, it's Stone. You got a minute?" "Always. What's up?" "I've got some news. We found David Patterson." Lucas's breath caught. David Patterson was the one lakeside survivor they'd never located. The one kid out of 67 who'd disappeared completely. For 3 years, Lucas had carried the weight of that failure. "Where is he?" "Detroit, living on the street. One of our field agents recognized him from the photos you provided. He's in bad shape, Lucas. Malnourished, PTSD, untrusting of any authority. But when we mentioned your name, he agreed to talk." "I'm coming to Detroit." "I figured you'd say that. I've already arranged transport. There's a flight leaving O'Hare in 3 hours." Lucas looked at Chen. "I have to go. It's David Patterson." Chen didn't hesitate. "Go. Bring him home." Lucas found David Patterson in a Detroit homeless shelter, 16 years old and looking 30. The same hollowed-out expression Lucas remembered from his own mirror 3 years ago. David recognized him immediately. "Martinez, heard you made it out." "I did. And now I'm here to help you make it out too." Lucas sat down, made himself non-threatening. Angels Watch has resources. Medical care, housing, legal support, everything. We can get you off the street today, if you'll let us." "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." "Because 3 years ago, 180 bikers helped me when I had nothing. They didn't know me either. They just knew that no kid should be sleeping in a warehouse in Chicago winter. Now I'm paying that forward." Lucas pulled out a card. "This is Doc Martinez. He's an ER physician. He'll do a full medical exam, get you whatever treatment you need. No questions, no judgment." David took the card with shaking hands. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just one request. When you're stable, when you're healthy, consider helping the next kid who needs it. That's how this works. We help you, you help someone else. The cycle continues." David was crying now. "I thought I was going to die out here." "You're not dying anywhere. You're coming home." They brought David to Chicago that night, set him up in emergency housing through Angels Watch. Doc Martinez examined him, found severe malnutrition, untreated infections, dental problems that required immediate surgery. The treatment started that day. 3 weeks later, David Patterson moved into a foster home, vetted and monitored by Angels Watch, started therapy, enrolled in school, began the slow process of healing that Lucas knew intimately. "You saved me," David said when Lucas visited. "You saved yourself by agreeing to get help. I just opened a door." "Still, thank you." Lucas left, feeling complete. 67 kids. All accounted for, all safe. The promise he'd made to his father was fulfilled. The acceptance letter arrived in August. Lucas opened it with Chen and Maya watching, Reaper on speakerphone from a National Angels Watch conference in Seattle. "Dear Mr. Martinez, we are pleased to offer you acceptance to the FBI Academy's accelerated program for exceptional candidates. Based on your documented investigative work in the Thornton case and your ongoing advocacy through Angels Watch, we believe you have the potential to become an outstanding federal agent. Please contact us to discuss your start date." Lucas couldn't speak. Chen grabbed the letter, read it 3 times, then pulled him into a hug that threatened to crack ribs. "You did it," she whispered. "You're going to be an FBI agent like you always wanted." "Like Dad always wanted," Lucas corrected. "He wanted me to follow him into law enforcement, to protect people." Maya tugged his sleeve. "Does this mean you're going away?" Lucas knelt down.
Just to Virginia for training, 6 months. Then I come back and work cases. But I'll call you every single day, I promise." "You better." Maya's lower lip trembled. "You're my brother. Brothers don't leave." "I'm not leaving, sweetheart. I'm just getting the training I need to help more kids like you. Like me. Like all the kids Angel's Watch serves." Reaper's voice came through the phone, thick with emotion. "Robert would be so proud, son. So damn proud." Lucas touched the badge in his pocket. "I hope so." The swearing-in ceremony happened at Quantico in January. Lucas stood with 47 other new agents, raising his right hand, taking the oath that his father had taken 20 years earlier.
"I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God." Chen and Maya sat in the front row, both crying. Reaper stood with 50 bikers in the back, a show of force and support that made the other families smile. The FBI director himself attended, shaking Lucas's hand personally. "Agent Martinez, you've already done more for child welfare in this country than most agents accomplish in full careers. I expect great things from you." "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." That night, Lucas called the warehouse on Chicago's South Side, where he'd spent 19 months. The building was being demolished next month, replaced by affordable housing. He stood outside one last time, looking at the broken windows where he'd once shivered through winter nights, and felt the full circle of his journey. From homeless to housed. From invisible to seen. From victim to protector. From alone to surrounded by family who'd chosen him not because of blood, but because of character. Lucas pulled out his phone and recorded a message that would become his most watched video, viewed over 89 million times. "My name is Lucas Martinez. I'm 18 years old. 3 years ago I was homeless, living in this warehouse behind me. I'd been thrown away by a system designed to protect children. I was invisible. I was nobody. Then, one night, I found a freezing toddler and made a choice that changed everything. I gave her my coat, knowing it might kill me, because her life mattered more than my comfort." He walked closer to the camera. "That choice brought 180 Hells Angels bikers to my rescue. They helped me expose a $4 million fraud scheme. They helped me bring down a man who'd hurt 67 children. They gave me a family when I had nothing. And they showed me that protection isn't about size or strength or how scary you look. It's about character. It's about seeing someone who needs help and deciding they matter." Lucas held up his FBI badge, brand new, gleaming. "Today, I became a federal agent. I'm going to spend my career doing what my father did, protecting people who can't protect themselves, investigating those who hurt children, making sure no kid gets thrown away the way I was." He looked directly into the camera. "But you don't need a badge to save a life. You just need to care. To see the invisible people around you. To trust your instincts when something feels wrong. To be the person who stops instead of walking away." Lucas pointed to the warehouse. 3 years ago, I was dying in that building. Today, I'm an FBI agent with a family who loves me, working for an organization that saved nearly 1,000 children. The difference between those two realities was one person who decided I mattered. One firefighter who believed me. One biker who mobilized his entire club. One choice to help
instead of ignore. He stepped closer. If you're watching this and you're in trouble, if you're a kid who's being hurt or neglected or thrown away, call someone. Keep calling until someone listens. There are people like Sarah Chen and Reaper Johnson and Doc Martinez out there, people who will fight for you. You're not garbage. You're not a throwaway. You matter. Your life has value. Don't give up. Lucas held up the badge again. And if you're an adult watching this, pay attention. Listen when a child hesitates. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Report what feels wrong. You have more power to save a life than you realize. Use it. Because somewhere right now, there's a kid who needs exactly what you can give. Don't let them be invisible. The video ended with Lucas walking away from the warehouse for the last time, his father's badge in one hand, his FBI credentials in the other. Proof that broken people could become protectors, that the most powerless could become the strongest, that giving away everything you had could somehow give you everything that mattered. 1 month later, Lucas Martinez stood at his father's grave one final time before starting his first official case as FBI agent Martinez. He wore his father's badge on a chain around his neck, his own badge clipped to his belt, carrying both legacies forward. "I did it, Dad," Lucas said quietly. "I finished what you started. Thornton's in prison. The system's better. 897 kids are safe because Angel's Watch exists. And I'm an agent now, just like you wanted. I'm going to protect people.
I'm going to fight for kids who can't fight for themselves. I'm going to make sure your death meant something." Maya ran up beside him, 7 years old now, and fearless.
"Lucas, Mama says we have to go. You've got that big case starting."
"I know, sweetheart. Just saying goodbye to my dad." Maya looked at the headstone seriously.
"Detective Martinez, your son is the best brother ever. He's going to be the best FBI agent, too. I'm going to be a firefighter like Mama, and we're both going to save people. Because that's what our family does."
Lucas pulled her close. This little girl who'd been dying in an alley 3 years ago, now healthy and strong, and determined to spend her life helping others because someone had helped her. Chen appeared, battalion chief uniform perfect, ready to drop Lucas at FBI headquarters for his first day. Reaper stood beside her, 72 years old and still riding, still leading Angel's Watch, still making sure no child got left behind.
"Ready?" Chen asked.
Lucas looked at his family, adopted but more real than blood, chosen because of courage and character, and the simple truth that he'd put a stranger's child ahead of his own survival. Looked at his father's grave, at the badge that connected past to present. Looked at the life he'd built from nothing. "Yeah," Lucas said, "I'm ready." They walked away together, this family forged in fire and ice, bound by the understanding that broken people weren't weak. They were exactly who hurting children needed, because they remembered what invisible felt like. And they'd die before letting another kid disappear. Lucas Martinez had given away his only coat on a freezing December night, and found that sometimes losing everything is how you gain what matters most: purpose, family, and the unshakable knowledge that one person's courage can change the world if they're brave enough to act when it costs them everything. The warehouse was demolished 3 weeks later. In its place, they built the Robert Martinez Youth Center, a safe house for homeless teens run by Angel's Watch, staffed by former Lakeside survivors. Proof that the most broken people in any room were often the ones with the most power to heal.
And every child who walked through those doors saw the same message Lucas had learned 3 years ago, carved into stone above the entrance. You are not invisible. You are not garbage. You are not alone. Someone sees you. Someone believes you. Someone will fight for you. Welcome home.